Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Talawanda City School District Board of Education meeting. Mr. Trafalski, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bothus?
Here.
Dr. Knight-Abowitz?
Here.
Dr. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Otto?
Here.
Mr. Mead?
Here. Dr. Thoreau, do you have a recommendation for the board?
It is recommended that the board approve the agenda as amended. There were a couple personnel changes and adjustments to their salaries and pay, and then we did a reorganization of which board member was going to do each of them. We put you last.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Otto. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Dr. Abowitz, would you call the roll, please, Mr. Trafalski?
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Dr. Knight-Abowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Bothus?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Tonight we have with us our kindergarten teacher from Bogan, Heather Davidson, who is a winner of the Techman Award this year, and I'm going to ask her to come forward and do us the honor of leading us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Davidson. Our legislative report, Dr. Knight-Abowitz.
Yes. The several things signed into law in the last several weeks, including Senate Bill 11, which makes changes to paid leave for Juneteenth, and employees removes the requirement that school districts grant paid leave to regular non-teaching school employees. And there are several bills moving through the House and Senate in Ohio, but wanted to draw folks' attention to the federal omnibus appropriations bill. This bill is basically a big budget bill that was passed in the House of Representatives by a 260 to 171 vote. And one of the things that we're concerned about in this bill is that it does not include an extension of the meal waiver authority to the United States Department of Agriculture. The current authority for USDA is to issue waivers. It's set to expire June 30th, 2022. And this impacts our ability to support food programs for kids in the summers. Can I ask you, Ms. Stafelsky, if you would expand a little bit on this in terms of what funds we would lose here?
I do not have the exact funds, but what this program allows is that no one has to fill out a free and reduced application. Everyone is entitled to a free breakfast and a free lunch. Now, if they bought extras or wanted an extra meal, that's not covered, but the first meal. So it's ensuring that every child does not go hungry, and it ensures that we are able to cover the costs of the ever-expanding cost of those goods, as far as the fruits, the vegetables, all the food, and these paper products going into making up that meal.
Can I add one more thing too?
Yeah,
so
thank
that
you.
means at the end of June, if it is not renewed, the waiver, that means going into next school year, all families will have to apply, except for the few that are direct certified. There are a few that would be direct certified into it. They would have to fill out a free and reduced form, which we have not done in over 2 years because it's been there. And if you do not fill it out, and if you do not qualify for free or reduced meal, you start earning charges until you either get that waiver, or if you don't get it at all, you have to pay the full price or reduced price. So this is something our families are not used to doing again, because it's been over 2 years.
Okay.
People will need to do it. We've talked as a leadership team this exact subject this morning, And we were talking about when we have our elementary going out into the communities, bringing laptops and having some ability to help families sign up if it doesn't pass. Again, it's been a great program because all students are able to get a free breakfast and lunch, and that is coming to an end unless it changes.
Okay. So if you're concerned about this, this removal of the extension of the meal waiver authority, you can email me for more information and lobby your senators because it's going to the Senate. But that's all of the updates I have.
Thank you, Dr. Knight Abwitz. The Arts and Athletic Liaison Report, Dr. Howard.
Yes, excuse me. The information that Mr. Cole sent me today, winter sports have completed. We had 3 league championships at Talawanda High School over the winter, girls basketball, boys swimming, and girls swimming. We had 1 SWAC Athlete of the Year, Marin Patterson, in girls swimming. We had 2 SWAC Coaches of the Year, Steve Pasquale, girls swimming, and Mary Jo Heisman, girls basketball. We had 19 first-team all-SWAC members from the winter. We have Kylie Fears and Jay Reynolds competing in the District 15 boys and girls basketball games next Wednesday. We had 10 district qualifiers, and we had 1 state qualifier over the winter, Marin Patterson, again for girls swimming. Spring sports have started, and they are holding baseball and softball scrimmages this week. And next, and the season starts March 26th. Track also starts on the 26th, and then lacrosse and boys tennis start on Monday, March 28th. In terms of arts, there's been a lot of presentations, a lot of concerts, a lot of things happening in this last month. Just last week, the high school presented a staged reading of a play called The Laramie Project, a very powerful work, and we're very proud of the students for the work they did on that production. The Bogan Art Show was this last Tuesday, and I hear it was fabulous. I'm sorry I couldn't go, I had another meeting, but it is still available online. If you go to the district website, click on Bogan and then the Bogan Art website, and the virtual art show is still available there. As well, Marshall has been posting some of their artworks that they've been doing throughout the year. Again, if you go to the district website, Marshall, and then click on Art Sonia, you can see many of the artworks that many Marshall students have been working on. In the music program, there have been several concerts just in the last several weeks. The All Choirs concert earlier in the month, and then the Music Suite Music percussion ensembles this past week, as well as bel canto and the 8th grade band. And I believe coming up are some concerts at a couple of the elementary schools. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. And the Student Achievement Liaison Report, Mr. Bothus.
Certainly. I got a message from Mr. Mers at Kramer. With last month being Black History Month, I don't know if anyone had a chance to go who's with us tonight, but it was a pretty amazing display. The counselor, Angela Erfman, had a door decorating contest, and the classrooms researched a wide variety of inventors, activists, and famous African Americans. Angela had district personnel come over to Kramer and help judge the contest. Mrs. Cheatham's class won the contest. It was a pretty amazing display. Classes were able to move through the hallways and participate in a scavenger hunt, so there was a lot of activity going on. Ms. Erfman also created a timeline of famous African Americans throughout history. And finally, Kramer parent Kitsy Frierson went to community members to share what Black history means to them. Our very own school nurse, Brittany Bragg, was highlighted in the videos. So thank you to Lamar, Conrad, and Jerome Conley for also providing videos. In Marshall, they've celebrated Right to Read Week with the theme of Reading is Out of This World. Each day had a different space-themed dress-up days, special space-based facts for announcements, door decorating, guest readers, a mobile planetarium visit, and ending the week with a glow dance party for students who completed a bingo card. And all the schools are gearing up, and I'm going off script here, for testing season. So we are entering now, we have summer, winter, fall, and of course test season as well. So make sure that your students are getting to bed on time and limiting devices and studying and practicing whenever they can. Those Ohio State tests are, as we all know, very important to a lot of aspects of our school.
Thank you, Mr. Bothus. Now for the Butler Technology Report. Last month I mentioned that Butler Tech switched to a lottery system to get in, and I had asked the superintendent there to give reports on numbers because we no longer do interviews. There was some concern about, by luck, a school district may end up having very few of their students get in since it was all based on chance. He provided those numbers. Talawanda did okay. We got the 56.5% of the students at Talawanda who applied to get in Butler Tech were accepted, and that actually is the third highest out of the 13 districts that are part of the Butler Tech Career Development Schools. So we did okay. Still way too many students were not able to get in. Next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the Butler Tech Board, myself included, are going to Washington to lobby for career tech education. We'll have meetings in Senator Portman and Brown's office and Representative Davidson and Shabbat's office, as well as with a representative of the Department of Education. So we hope that turns out well for trying to get some more federal funds earmarked for career tech education, as if you see how many jobs are opened in areas that need those kind of specialized skill, and that Butler Tech is turning away students because we don't have the facilities to educate them and meet the needs of our businesses. We hope we have some success there. Okay, moving on to presentations. Dr. Thoreau?
Yes, at this point in time, we have Holly Morsch, our Director of Communications, at the microphone, and she will introduce the next. Matt, can we turn on the microphone if it's not turned on? There it is.
There we go. I just wanted to take a moment and introduce Betsy Hope and invite her to come to the microphone. Betsy is the Executive Director of the Oxford Community Foundation, and just want to take a little moment to say that without the Oxford Community Foundation, we wouldn't be able to do some of the programs that we do here in the district. Certainly, they help enhance student learning, extracurriculars, clubs, field trips. They help us fund a lot of the extras that we're able to provide as far as experiences for students. This evening, Betsy is going to recognize one of our educators with the Techman Award, and if I'm not mistaken, that started in the 1990s, to honor two educators, Harry and Virginia Techman. And I'll turn it over to Betsy.
Thank you. I am very happy to be here tonight to present the Techman Award. This is the Excellence in Education Award that was started in 1997 by Charlie and Joan Techman in honor of their educator parents, Harry and Virginia Techman. And I think most people know that this year's award goes to Mrs. Heather Davidson. Heather was nominated by a colleague of hers, Sarah Currier, who said, Mrs. Davidson is a strong leader in the classroom as she guides, encourages, teaches, and loves her students each day. The academics Heather so creatively teaches create a strong foundation that sets her students up to be successful in first grade and beyond. She is an educator who works many hours outside her day. She is always researching and brainstorming new ways to reach students, and is frequently reworking, redesigning lessons to make them more engaging for her kiddos. She is the kindergarten grade level chair, a member of the Positive Behavior Interventions and Support Committee, and a mentor to new teachers at Bogan. She is well respected among her colleagues and is always there to offer as much support to her peers as she does to her students. And she will receive $500 to use at her school in any way that she wishes. I do want to mention that the deadline for this year for the Educator Award nominees is December 31st, and that can be made by anybody in the community and for any staff member within the district in any department. So congratulations, Mrs. Davidson.
How about you do one of Betsy and Heather, and then we can come up and do one with the board, if you're all right with that? And Betsy, of course, come on up too with the board. Perfect, come on up. And board, if we want to get together.
Congratulations, Heather. I know it's well-deserved, listening to some of the comments from your colleagues and people that have worked with you. And also thank you, Mrs. Hope, for all the work the Community Foundation does for the district. We really appreciate everything that the Oxford Community Foundation does for us. Dr. Throw.
Thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to invite Principal Mers up. We have the Bogan Presentation tonight. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and how lucky that it's on the same night that we're recognizing Heather, who does fantastic work for Bogan, both supporting her colleagues and the families at Bogan, so we really appreciate her. I'd like to start by saying, you know, it's my first year at Bogan, and I very much appreciate the opportunity provided to me to serve the students and the staff and the families at Bogan. You can go ahead and advance my slides, Mr. Rand. So starting any new position and being new in a place, especially in a year where we've had some challenges around COVID and things like that, I was struck by this quote from Mr. Rogers that says, "Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping." Go ahead and advance, please, Mr. Rand. It really has been a team effort this year, making sure that our students are learning face-to-face at Bogan and making wonderful memories. And when I say team effort, I mean team effort top to bottom. We have had so many helpers in our building, from our central office staff who has helped us, from families who have provided support and help. Anytime a teacher sends out any kind of notice for something they need, our families are fantastic at sending things in and providing support for those things. We couldn't do it without everybody working together. It's really been obvious. So we kind of have some pictures that highlight the year on a month-by-month kind of basis. We started the fall with planning and then holding outdoor concerts. We really wanted to create some memories for our students, and we worked kind of within the box, thinking outside the box, making sure we could provide these opportunities within the parameters that were, you know, kind of guiding all the things we did in schools. So Deb Pitts worked with her second and third grade classes, those teachers, and planned and organized concerts to be held outside. And you want to talk about helpers. Moving 300 chairs out to the back parking lot at Bogan, took our custodial staff and any extra hands we had, and then at the end of the concert, we even had families. Parents were helping us carry chairs in, put everything away. It really was a fantastic kind of first foray back into getting everybody together. Our Halloween parade is always a big hit. You can see our specials teachers there, and you may or may not recognize the pigeon, also known as Mrs. Bryan. But we were able to take that outside literally between raindrops. The skies parted for us at Bogan to be able to get outside so everybody could see kids in their costumes. Again, really working on, providing those memories for kids. In November, we put a call out to folks to, kind of invite them to share any photos or information they had about folks in their families who served in the military, and we had a fantastic outpouring of information, old photos, just a variety of things that were sent in to us for us to share. So we created this wall of honor that stayed up the whole week at Bogan, and you can see the photo on the right of the kids coming in from the bus looking for their family members and seeing, the family members from their classmates who served. And that was really cool. And we even highlighted some of our own Talawanda folks who serve as well. At Christmas time, on the last day before the break, the staff decided we would kind of celebrate and send kids off with a good memory, and we all dressed as the elf on the shelf. So when students came in on the last day before the winter break, they found us all dressed like this. We even had a Zoom meeting that morning, so you can see our little elf Zoom meeting as well. Thanks, Mr. Rand. We're really excited to be able to welcome back some community visitors as well. We had Miami University student athletes bring books to our second graders. Again, we were able to do that safely outside when things were still kind of pretty restricted. And then on the right, you can see Rox the Fox. Everybody at Bogan was excited to see Rox. So again, welcoming back visitors has been a big part of what we're doing as well. Our PTG this year has started a new program where we're going to do a student spotlight. They also do a staff spotlight, and anybody can recognize a student. Our theme has kind of been around kindness and kids doing kind things and people doing kind things for each other. So this was our first winner who received a water bottle with a nice Talawanda tea on it and recognition and a little gift certificate, and he was actually nominated for holding the door for every single student on his bus when it was storming outside. So, quite a pat on the back for that fella. And then practicing kind play as well with some of our younger kiddos, getting back to being able to play fair and play appropriately and play safely on the playground has been a little bit of a challenge. So when we run into situations where we've had some rough play or some disagreements, they usually spend time in the office with me and we practice playing some games, congratulating each other when we win, saying good job when we lose, and just practicing that appropriate play. The Thankful Thursday cart has been another highlight this year. If you read the Oxford Observer, you hopefully saw the article. Our occupational therapist and our speech therapist at Bogan are working with some of our other intervention specialists to create this job scenario basically for some of our students that have special needs, and it allows them the opportunity to practice their communication skills, practice some inventory skills, have some positive interactions with adults around the building as they bring snacks and drinks around on Thursdays. And it's really a highlight of the week for a lot of us, and it's been really fun to see how much some of these students have grown. A couple of the students in particular kind of follow what we pick, and so they like to say, oh, we've got this for you today, Mrs. Mers, or we've got this for you today. So it's been really fun. The first big field trip that happened this year, again, was the second grade science day at THS. It was a big hit for our students. First time that this group of students has been on a field trip. And the Talawanda High School students did a fantastic job organizing some engaging hands-on activities for the kids. They came back and were thrilled, and today, actually, they just got back their bottle cap magnets that they made. So that was a big highlight for today, too. We also welcomed back our book fair this year, and some parent volunteers were able to come and help with that, which was wonderful, getting parents back in the building. And then our Super Bowl celebration was a big hit. You may have seen on the news, we were highlighted for our little kind of party and carry-in and dress-up activity that happened during the AFC championship weekend. But then we also had a nice Super Bowl celebration, and kids wore their orange and black, so that was fun as well. And last but not least, one of the projects we're working on now, and then also kind of a program we're working on moving forward, is revitalizing and utilizing our outdoor spaces. We have beautiful space at Bogan, and actually out back beyond the playground, there's even a bird blind, and we've cleared out a trail Ms. Courier, one of our kindergarten teachers, has worked on that this summer. She did a program during our PD day in the fall and talked a lot about place-based learning, and that's something we're focusing on at Bogan as well. We're looking to get the Ohio Department of National Resources accreditation for our school and working on some projects with that, and the students have really enjoyed that, and we're really lucky to have that space at Bogan. So our theme for this year, Better Together, we hope we're living it again. Fantastic things are happening. Kids are learning, we're creating memories, and we're really glad to have been highlighted tonight. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Mers.
Thank you, Mrs. Mers. At this point in time, I'd like to call up principals Mr. Malone and Mrs. Arney, and I'm going to recall Mrs. Principal Mers, too, to give us an update on the diversity and equity plan and committees.
Thank you. Good evening. We wanted to start out and just give an update of our diversity and equity plan. We want to kind of go through. The board did a board resolution in May of 2020, so we wanted to give some updates on what we've been doing that connects to the resolution, and then kind of share what direction we're going with each section of our plan. Okay, so the first part of the resolution, it discusses value, that the resolution values and inclusion and equity as part of the strategic plan. So as you can see, we have put this plan together, working through over the last 2 years with a group of educators, staff members, and community stakeholders. So we've got a good group of people working on this plan. We have approximately about 10 educators and community people in this group. Please. The next part of the resolution was that the plan would be developed and regularly reviewed. We are meeting at least 3 times a year. We have tied in the 5 different geographic areas to the district to try and get representation throughout the district, so all of the district can feel like they're being heard as we have put this plan together. The next part of the resolution is to report out to the school and community. As you can see, here are different board presentations. The resolution asks to do that twice a year, so we did that. The first one was in March of 2021, and then we have done 2 this year, back in December, and this is our second presentation this year. The next part of the resolution was to implement and apply professional development, quality and discipline and communication. And Mrs. Arney is going to speak here in a little bit, and you'll see these parts intertwined in the plan as she goes through the different sections that we've talked about in the diversity plan. And then the last part of the resolution was to have the information that we are working through the plan readily accessible on our website. So here are links of where our updates are posted on our website. We'll put this presentation on there and other things that we're doing. We're going to keep posting on the page at the website.
The plan we talked about in December when we presented and kind of gave the final changes to it. The plan itself is in 5 pieces, and those have not really changed much, but we wanted to come together tonight to give some updates of things that we've been working on. Some things are at full implementation, others are still at the planning stage, just simply as we move through the year. So the first area essentially is to create this committee, which we have been doing. We've expanded our membership this year. New members are currently being appointed as we move into planning for next year. Contact Mrs. Mers if you would like to join that. For example, we've added staff members so that we have representation for all 5 buildings, and our members all serve 2-year terms, so we have some overlap so that it's not 2 years, an entirely new group of people. So Mike and I have really enjoyed our 2 years working on this, but we will be stepping down, and other secondary administrators will kind of take our role. The second section is about recruitment, hiring and retention of staff members. Some of the things that have been in place and that we are working towards, incorporating interview questions related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, using Frontline, which is a system we've been using, but it reaches applicants across the state of Ohio. We have current plans in place to reach out to, ooh, you went too fast for me, Mr. Rain. We have current plans for the Student Diversity and Inclusion Center at Miami to kind of collaborate with them, as well as providing training and support to all staff in the areas of diversity, and this is going to be in collaboration with our teaching and learning department. The third section is, it says increase the cultural proficiency of all teachers, administrators, and staff. We kind of look at this as the professional development piece. We have increased our professional development in the areas of diversity and equity throughout the year in our calendar of professional development, both on those district PD days as well as Wednesday in-service time and asynchronous options that have been given. There's some examples there. We've had book groups occurring throughout several of the buildings in the district, as well as teacher-led initiatives in buildings, sharing of resources, et cetera. So we've really seen a lot of buy-in from our staff and them actually wanting to initiate things outside of, professional development that is offered to them. The fourth section of the plan deals with community engagement and that relationship with our students, their families, and our community stakeholders. Part of the committee, some of the committee members have developed a calendar that recognizes various holidays, observances, et cetera, that we want to present to our students as well as to our staff and our community as a whole to say that these are holidays and observances that Talawanda as a district recognizes our students celebrate, and we want to honor that. We're also increasing our partnership with the Oxford Multicultural Family Alliance. And then lastly, the last piece of the plan is about student engagement. Some of the specific things that are in place is we've expanded student leadership roles in all 5 of the buildings. Whether that looks like peer mediation, student ambassadors, there's lots of different options of how this is looking across the district. And then continuing to use training for our teachers on many of the screeners that we use. For example, at the secondary level, we've just done a panorama screening that gives us a lot of really good information about our students. But taking that a step further, after we do the screening, teachers need to know what to do with that information. So that was feedback we got from the staff, and those are things that this group is trying to spearhead as we move forward. Yes. So again, we have a new team that's kind of assembling now. There are additional things on the website as well as these presentations. We are also putting these presentations on the district website because I know that not all families are able to attend or even watch board meetings online. So we want to just make sure that this progress as we're making it is accessible to our families, to our students, to our staff.
I want to thank you all, and because you've done a lot of work in the short time since the plan's been developed and presented to the board. I also know that we have several high school students under our high school teachers who participate in a diversity training and leadership through High Aims with multiple school districts, Hamilton County, Warren County, Butler County. So that's really exciting, and that started this year too under your guys' leadership. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate the update.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to say I've been on this team for the last 2 years, and this has been one of the most well-functioning, engaged, and committed committees I've ever been on. So thank you very much for that. I am coming to the end of my term, and we need a new board member on this committee. Just kind of throwing that out there for y'all to think about.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. At this point in time, I'm going to ask Dennis Malone to come forward with the first readings of new policies.
Thank you, Dr. Thoreau. I think we've got 12 policies today. Most of those are revisions. And just to explain for the folks that are in the crowd, I understand the board's aware of this, but policy is pretty much what our board operates or any organization operates under. That's the structure, the framework of it. where our revisions and new policies come from, we have an organization that we work with, a team of lawyers. They're constantly reviewing federal law, state law, and they make sure that they can keep us in compliance with all of the different areas, especially with federal regulations and how we spend money and other things. So these 12 policies are all coming from some decision made at some other area, where they're saying down to where we operate, this is something we must comply to, or either we don't comply and we may be subject to a federal suit, or we could also be subject to no funding because we're not complying. So that's just to go through these. The first four, and I think the other thing I'd want to explain for folks in the audience is that each section refers to a different group. For example, you know, the 3,000 section, that's certified staff. 4,000 section is classified staff. So if you hear, why are they reading the same thing 3 or 4 times? It's because the administrative staff, everything has to comply with these different sections of code. Again, so for example, our very first reading here on these 4 are we have 2 new policies and 2 revisions on staff dress and grooming. They haven't been, the 2 that are revisions haven't been touched for probably 15 years, and they're 2 new ones. So policy 1616 through 3216, 4216, and 5511 are all basically saying that we're expecting, you know, there be a certain dress appropriate for school. And that's what that's referring to there. Policy number 2271, which is the College Credit Plus program. Here's an example of where language has been on the board, but federal auditors have decided it's now time to enforce a section of this code that really hasn't been enforced. And I think this is important. We've already got it in the hands of our counselors here, because what it says is that every 18-year-old male who intends to participate in the College Credit Plus program must also be enrolled in selective service. And if for some reason, if that 18-year-old male chooses not to enroll in selective service, and they would be permitted to participate in the College Credit Plus program, federal government won't pay for that. They won't reimburse the school. The schools will not reimburse us. So it's all tied to federal money. So it's important for our counselors, and again, this is just coming to us, but for our counselors to say now and in the future that if a 18-year-old male, and it again specifically states male, and they choose to participate in the College Credit Plus program, they must enroll in selective service. So it's a mid-year thing that we're getting, but I think it's going to be very important at the beginning of next year, again, to emphasize, as all of our students begin to look for that possibility of how can I enroll in not only Miami University, but any other post-secondary program and have it paid for through Talawanda. This is part of the requirements now. Blended learning. Blended learning is kind of a reflection of what's come through us after COVID and online programs. Policy number 2370.1 basically says that we now have some other changes in statute, and non-computer-based learning also have to be included in the blended learning program. Let's see, excuse me. Okay, moving on. Weapons. There were 2 different policies of weapons here, policy 5772 and policy 7217, which reflects changes have also come in from policy 3217 and 4217. So now we've got all 4 sections covered, and apparently at some point down the line, certain items such as incendiary devices were not considered a weapon. So federal government, state government says you have to include it. That's what we're doing to be in compliant. The next 4 policies are all treasury-related money. Policy 6110 is, again, the ESSER money, the federal money that came to us. There are strings attached on how we spend that money, and so this policy is just reminding our district, and specifically our treasurer, of how that money is expected to be spent and the rules we have to follow. Cost principles and spending. This is something, again, it's interesting, again, that the federal government has made a decision that there are certain companies, specifically Chinese companies, that we are not permitted to deal with on technology-type issues and use our federal money. And so that's what's this saying, is that please, if not please to it, don't do it. So if you're making purchases in technology and you intend to use ESSER money or federal money, do not use these companies. Procurement of federal grants and funds. it's talking, this is more in relation to construction. There's a dollar value of anything over $2,000 that we, again, treasurer, district is required to comply with any construction money in using federal funds. And the last one is just the use of credit cards. This is a revision. It's been on the books. It's something we already do, but it's authorizing, really the responsibility of the treasurer to authorize who in the district has the right to use a credit card. I don't know if there's anything else, Mrs. Tafalski, that we need to mention on that. Okay. Let's see. The only other policy that I don't think I have mentioned here, and it would be Policy 8500. Now, this policy has probably been touched more than any other policy in the last 9 years. And here's what it really says is that it applies to just milk. We have some students who are lactose intolerant. They can't drink milk, but under the guidelines of what constitutes a meal, milk is considered part of that. So now this gives parents permission to make a request not to have their children drink milk under the lunch program. They don't need a doctor's prescription for this, and then we can provide a substitute to those students. It's just a matter that all we would need to know would be if that parent says, you know, in this case, Dennis Malone is lactose intolerant, can he drink fruit juice instead of milk and still be covered on the program? That's what it is. So very quickly, I believe, that's the 12 policies that we have for the first reading tonight. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask about 5511, dress and grooming for students.
Yes.
It looks like this was adopted in '94 and hasn't been updated since then. And I know there were discussions at the high school around dress codes this past year, and wondered if you could just walk us through some of the changes that were made here in terms of updating this, and how students, sort of student input was considered, or...
So I understand what came up with the high school this year, where there was a concern about specifically female students, enforcement of dress code, and was there equity there in how a student looked compared to how the code was being enforced. And so that's where I think student input came in. Staff sat down and got together and said, what do we want to accomplish here? And the accomplishment is that we expect any student and staff, if they come in, to be dressed in such a way that would help prepare them for, if they're leaving here and they're going to the world of work, that they kind of have a sense of what they're expected to do and how they dress. So I think the changes in the code here are more of, maybe we don't enforce, I don't know if that's the right word, maybe we don't enforce certain dress code, what used to be considered a violation, because it's so subjective on how that particular person is wearing it. And I'm not saying anything that all of us would know. I mean, 3 people could wear the same outfit because of their body type or their style or whatever. It's going to look completely different. And so I think, especially the young ladies were saying, you know, just because maybe the way I'm built, it's being enforced, but that person wears exactly the same thing that's not being enforced. So I think our administrators, our teachers, and our students try to come to a better resolution of what's really important and what do we would enforce here.
Can I add? I'll jump in. So the change to this policy and updating it, you'll notice there's language that the board now authorizes the superintendent to establish a reasonable dress code. So that's new language that's being added and updated to this policy that wasn't in there. And then there's also some changes with just wording semantics, like shall, will, shall, that type of stuff. And then there's also an addition that students who violate the dress code could possibly receive discipline for it. So those are the upgrades to this policy. The policy is not specific code of conduct. The specific code of conduct is established at the superintendent building levels. I can tell you that, as Director Malone stated, there were high school individuals who did meet and work with the administration about their dress code, and they were listening to them. We are now entering into a part of preparing for next school year, so all of the buildings are now working on the code of conduct, and we've worked to streamline the code of conduct where it's developmentally appropriate, because not everything's the same at elementary and high school, but K through 12. So we are currently working on revamping our code of conduct, but you would not see that in this policy. You would see that in the code of conducts that get published every year. Did that answer your question?
So this policy is general guidelines. The specifics of what that dress code looks like then is up to you and building administrators.
Absolutely correct. It's like the umbrella. It's the overarching arch, and then what's underneath it comes now. It even says the superintendent's able to get it, and we can have it by building for the dress code.
Yeah, and again, I think that's the policy that goes to administrative guidelines, in this case, the code of conduct. And we actually spent some time this morning in our meeting as a group, again, talking about this. I just think there's a general consensus that all administrators, all teachers want to respect the students who are coming in with the dress code. And what it comes down to, I think we need to get more input from students. We also need to hear more from parents so that there is a general agreement that if a parent is being called about a dress code violation, that there's an understanding of why it's a dress code violation. And I think it's also fair to say that male, female, that if you have, for example, I was a high school principal. I was uncomfortable with talking to a female high school student about certain dress. So it was much easier for me to ask a female teacher, counselor, assistant principal to talk with that young lady about that, because maybe it's not appropriate, maybe it is appropriate, but I didn't know if I was the person to do that. I might talk with my own daughter, but I don't know that I would be comfortable talking with others. And I think it also came in other areas. So this is just trying to be more of a respectful approach to talking with young people about dress. And the overall goal about, we hope that when they leave and they go out to apply for any type of a position, that they're representing themselves well. Because there's such a variety of what considered is what's appropriate dress in the world today.
And I'm just going to jump in. We understand that there's a poverty issue too, sometimes associated with this, and we don't want embarrassment. So we are working with our social workers to work with individuals and families that need help too, as well as our counselors, as well as our staff members too. So while some families may see what looks like a dress code violation, there may be more reasons behind it, and that we're working towards it, if that makes sense. Thank you, Mr. Malone.
Okay, thanks, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thrill. At this time, we'll have the public participation portion of our meeting. I'd like to remind people that when they come forward to please state their name clearly and their area of residence for district residency. You will have 3 minutes to speak on a topic that and address the board, and we will limit it to 30 minutes. So we just ask everyone to be respectful and courteous. The board will not reply at this time. That's not the purpose of our business meeting, but we do appreciate and want your input on different matters. And if I look rude up here, it's because I keep a timer to make it 3 minutes so that I'm fair to everybody and don't get caught up in one conversation and let one person speak longer than they should. I want to ensure my own fairness, so to speak. So if anybody has something they want to address the board on, I invite you to approach the microphone and introduce yourself.
My name is Tomoko Brown. I have a son in high school. And my daughter is a Miami student now, Talawanda graduate 2020. And she, since she was in a freshman in high school, she participated in mock trial. And I don't think I heard that update during the student achievement, But I'm very disappointed that I didn't hear that Talawanda High School mock trial varsity team this last weekend. They had a state. They went to state competition, and they won the state, and it's #1 in the state. And they are considering going to nationals. And this has never happened before in Talawanda. And I am very disappointed that none of you mentioned this. And it's, I feel it's always focused on athletics and not so much in other academic challenge or mock trial, other things. And I just want to mention, thank you.
Thank you for that information and your comments. Anybody else would like to approach?
Hello, Amy Shaman. I live in city proper. I have a child at Kramer. And congratulations to the mock trial team. I wanted to comment on the policies 1616, the various ones, the 3 different numbers that deal with staff and staff dress and grooming. I want to encourage the board to consider the wording carefully or guidelines that interpret the wording for item E. Item E specifies, that people be groomed in such a way that their hairstyle or dress does not disrupt the educational process, nor cause health or safety hazard. I just want to encourage the actual interpretation of that rule to always be conscious of having the broadest cultural understanding of what acceptable hairstyles are. There are very well-known I don't know if they're well known, but there are incidents throughout our society that have happened to children, to young adults, and to adults in the workplace where people of color who wear natural hairstyles have been discriminated against. And I think while this policy is being refreshed, it's an opportunity to make sure that that does not happen inadvertently or intentionally. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening?
Good evening, Mike Dettman, Hanover Township. Just a repeat of my comments over the last decade about excessive spending here. Haven't heard anything that indicates you're planning on making a change. We know we spend more than anybody else in the county, and I would hope that you guys would finally look into it. Why do we have to spend $3,000 a student more than Monroe, $2,000 more than Ross? And on top of that, the key item here, besides the spending, is the academic performance. Those folks are ahead of us, and they're spending a whole lot less money. Somebody ought to be looking into that and explaining to us why. Why are we not getting the performance when we're spending the most money? We had a performance audit that gave you folks some ways to look at cutting costs. One of the primary things was to get to a 0 salary increase for this year. Well, you failed that mission. And we continue to spend more and more. Now, with inflation starting to pick up, I can hear it next year and the year after. Oh, we need more money. We need more money. What we need is fiscal responsibility, folks, and we're waiting. Some of you board members actually ran on that topic. I'm still waiting to see you produce. I don't know when that's going to happen. The other topic, I attended your board work session, and you talked about setting of goals and communication, both very important. You talked about how do you gain the trust of the community and the parents and everybody else. The first thing, you got to be open, honest, transparent. Be accountable. For example, when our grade slipped from a B to a C, what happened? We brought somebody in to explain, well, gee, statistically, we just missed it by a little bit. Why not just say we didn't make it and what we're going to do better? Don't go in denial. Step up, be accountable, make us believe in you folks. I appreciate you guys letting us speak, and thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anyone else?
Gracie Melders, I'm 20 years old. I spoke at the board meeting in January as a 2020 graduate. I was in Paul Stiver's class in 7th grade. I've been in therapy off and on since middle school. I developed an eating disorder in November of 2020. Through therapy and treatment, it was discovered I developed this disorder because of my previous sexual assaults. In 7th grade, I was sexually assaulted by Paul Stiver when he pressed his hands against my chest. I quit track before my sophomore season began because of how severe my anxiety was getting. These are all facts. This incident happened to me in 7th grade and was never dealt with. I was taken from his class and placed in the office. I came forward again to support the other victims. Yet this case has been stretched on, and still we have not been given the results of the district's decision. See, I understand the guidelines in place to ensure Paul Stiver and other predators get a fair case. I understand the steps we must go through for Title IX. However, these steps should have been dealt with long ago in 2014. No other child should have been touched. This case should not be ongoing. Taking a child out of his class or out of school does not solve the problem. The problem is a middle-aged man touching children. Revoking our education does not solve that issue. School is supposed to be a safe place to provide learning to the very people who will be in charge of our future, but Talawanda's negligence is compromising that. This case is not about me. I did not get the closure in 2014. Instead, I was made to feel responsible. The past 7 years, I've dealt with the consequences of the district's mistakes. Therapy, treatment, time, and tears will not make the trauma any less painful. I know that with certainty. However, if we can give the most recent victims the justice they deserve, their lives can be different than mine. Quieting the children in the halls of the middle school won't erase a pedophile's hands on their chest. Denying the truth and promoting lies will not be the norm anymore here. The administrators of our schools have become reckless with their power, protecting a pedophile with their authority to protect their own paycheck and pension needs to end. An assault that happened 7 years ago still affects who I am today, still makes me stop and question the life I'm living. I was forced to grow up too fast, and am told I am wise beyond my years, when in reality, it is me being too cautious for a future of the unknown I fear. The few minutes I'm allotted to speak now is not enough to say everything needed, but I'll say this. Students deserve to feel safe. The survivors deserve to find happiness, to not question their being, to not question their life. I'm still trying to find out who I'm supposed to be, how to move forward from the hurt in my life, to find new meaning in what I do, to find the worth in surviving, but I assure you I will not allow the school to get away with sweeping children's lives under the rug any longer. For the others, this is not too far gone. I feel pity for Stivers and the administrators of this district. How are you allowing the principal who hid Mr. Stiver's actions for nearly a decade to become the director of human resources? How do you sleep at night after leaving a path of destruction where you once stood? How can you deny so many children an education when that's what you claim to provide? Because no matter how badly his hands will make me feel for the rest of my life, I will survive knowing that at least I've been brave enough to tell the truth.
Thank you, Gracie. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening?
I'm going to start off with this number, 106.
Sir, could you state your name
Dustin
again?
LeMay, Hanover Township.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to start off with this number, 106. It has been 106 days since my daughter was inappropriately touched by a teacher at your middle school. It has been 106 days that has allowed him to sit home and collect his regular paycheck. It has been 106 days since our lives changed forever. Last time I stood up here, I spoke from the heart to let you know that the longer this goes on, the more difficult it's going to be on the victims. Never in my wildest dreams would have I guessed that on March 17, 2022, I would still be living in this nightmare. I was initially told by your Title IX coordinator that once the decision maker received the investigation report, they would review it and issue their decision promptly. Well, that hasn't happened. Your attorney communicated with the decision maker, who is also your attorney, since you kind of hired them, and decided that they don't care what is best for Michaela or the other victims. They wanted to do what they felt is best for the district and the disgusting teacher who's caused all of this. Instead of issuing a decision on each complaint individually as it happens, they decided to hold all complaints and wait to release the decisions at the same time. Tell me again how you have the best interests of the students in mind, and save us our hands are tied because of Title IX. If this were 2 years ago, we could have taken care of it a lot more quickly excuse. Because 2 years ago and beyond, there were complaints from other victims that you made the decision not to handle it all. The weight of the stress and lack of answers and communication has beaten Michaela down. There's not much lower she can go. She has hit rock bottom. My once outgoing, carefree little girl isn't herself anymore. There were a couple days last week that were the most difficult of my life. My little girl looked me directly in the eye with no emotion and let me know she was done. Because of what she went through and a few kids at school teasing her, she expressed the desire to kill herself. Remember when you offered counseling services for the victims? You left out the part that they accepted those services, their parents would be required to sign a waiver that states those sessions would become part of the students' educational records. No, I blame you. You heard the stories and complaints, but you decided to turn a blind eye and let this predator continue to teach and coach in this district. You're intentionally dragging this on in hopes of we get tired and drop it like others in the past have done. Michaela may grow tired and weak, but I will remain strong for her and the others involved. This community deserves better than what you have given them. You were voted or appointed onto the board to protect their best interest. Somewhere along the lines, you've forgotten that. I fully intend to keep my promise that I will continue fighting until the teacher and all others who have known about his actions but refuse to investigate them receive their proper punishment. There are people out there saying I'm doing this for attention. I want them to know it's not about me. It's about the kids and the victims. The more attention that this topic gets, the more likely it is that these victims get justice. The more attention this topic gets, the more likely it is that the district changes and decides to stop turning a blind eye. And the more attention that this topic gets, the less likely that there will be victims in the future. So it may have been 106 days, but I still believe them.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Hi, my name's Caroline, and I'm a junior at Miami University. I've kind of been following what's been going on with the teacher at Talawanda High School, and it just kind of reminded me of something similar that I went through. I had an older coworker at my job of 3 years, and he sexually harassed and assaulted me, and nothing was done. They covered up his tracks to protect, because it was a big company, they wanted to kind of protect their reputation, not lose any money, not lose any members of their community. And that was covered up, and it's something that you can't get over, unless you get justice, and kids are supposed to feel safe at work, at school. And I think that if nothing is done, how are other students coming in to your school gonna feel safe? I'm just not understanding why this type of behavior is being excused, and it just further traumatizes every single person that has ever been inappropriately touched by someone that is supposed to be their mentor, their teacher, a coworker, a boss, anybody. and it really like traumatizes you as you grow up, and it's such a hard lesson to learn when you're like in your older teenage years. Sorry. But I just like am really hopeful that justice is served, because it wasn't for me. And it's really hard to live with that. And I just hope that I see something different here and that justice is served here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Peter Sterney. My children go to McGuffey. I have 4 daughters there. Sorry, 3 daughters and a son about to go there. But they will be entering the Talawanda school system. And after hearing about Michaela and her father's issues, I am concerned. They are all 8 years old and below. But I'm here to show support for this father's strife and to be concerned about it enough to show up tonight and start thinking about what kind of school district my children will be entering. So I just wanted to be here to support this issue tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? I want to thank everybody who had the courage to stand up and everybody who shares their thoughts with the board. We do listen and hear what you're saying. At this time, we'll move on to the report of the treasurer, to Ms. Trafalski.
Block 5A through 5E, and that the board approves the following as presented. Approval of the February 17th, 2022 regular minutes. Approval of the March 7th, 2022 work session minutes. Approval of the gifts that we received from the Oxford Presbyterian Deacons, as well as an anonymous donation for our social worker fund. Approval of the appropriation modifications, and approval of any then and nows over $3,000.
Can I get a motion to approve 5A through 5E?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Otto. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bothus. Any discussions and or questions? I think the 2 gifts from the Oxford Presbyterian Deacons and the anonymous one, both for our social work program, show that there's a lot of community support for what our social workers do, and I think that's a good sign. With that, Ms. Trafalski, if you want to call the roll.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Bothus?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item up is 5F, and it is recommended that the board approve the February financial report as presented.
Can I get a motion to approve 5F?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Howard, and a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Dr. Knight Abowitz. Is there any discussions and or questions, or Shauna, you want to?
I was going to go into a little bit more involved after the vote.
Okay. Does anybody have any discussions and questions for Shauna? Okay, then call the roll, Ms. Trafalski.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Bothus?
Yes.
Bless you. Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Motion passes. Before we do go on to 5G, I wanted to share a cost savings tracker. Matt, if you wanted to put that up on the screen. Okay. This is something that I started and piggybacks on the performance audit spreadsheet that was shared a few months back. This was emailed to you in the board packet a few days ago. There has been much discussion on what the district has done in relation to the performance audit, which, as I said, we shared a few months ago. I will be honest and say that it was not easy to read or understand unless you live in the world of spreadsheets on a day-to-day basis. Hopefully, this is a little bit easier to read and to understand, but if you can't, then please give me a call and we'll set up an appointment. This spreadsheet not only includes more than the action taken based on that performance audit, it includes items that are looked at annually based on class sizes and/or programs that Talawanda offers to our student. It also includes some savings or money received that were captured due to the pandemic. These are what I consider one-offs or windfalls which cannot be annualized. I'll also let you know that these numbers only date back to fiscal year 20. Although the previous administration and board were always looking at ways to save money, this is only focusing on the 19-20 school year and looking forward. In looking at the headers, you will see the word fund. I wanted to reflect where we saw the savings or where we will see these savings. 001 is our general fund, which is what the 5-year forecast is based on every year. 003 is our permanent improvement fund, which involves any capital expense having a life of generally 5 years or more. The 006 fund is anything related to our food service program, and when you see the word mix, it means that a number of funds were affected, not just the general fund. I know that you will have questions, but I think it is important to let you and the community know that expenses are looked at not only annually, but monthly and even daily, brainstorming on ways to save money without sacrificing the programs and the education that our students need. So I welcome any questions based on this spreadsheet if anyone has any questions. I will point out that the first one, as far as the performance audit, asked for a 0% raise. We are capturing that in fiscal year 24, or as it says on the spreadsheet, school year 24. So there is a 0% raise reflected in fiscal year 24. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Tchaikovsky?
Well, I just keep looking at these spreadsheets. I look at the numbers and I look at our financial 5-year forecast. And I just recently read that the Ohio Department of Taxation has put Ross in a precautionary financial state. And I'm wondering, and I go back to when Mike Davis was the treasurer, and after I was on the board for just a few months, he told me that we're not going to be able to cut our way out of this financial problem. And I look at what we've done without raising taxes, that we've built 2 schools without tax increase. I also think back to that that we haven't had a tax cut on these things, and it's been such a long time since we've gone out for a levy. But I also wonder, when we look at all these, and I know you're looking at cuts, I know every year we're looking at it, you give us a report of the positions that you've eliminated, positions that you've combined, and I'm wondering, where are we going to go with this? At some point, we are going to be a Ross, and I'm wondering, with Mike's thoughts, are we going to cut our way out of this? I just don't know. And like Ross, we're similar in that the Ohio Department of Education thinks we're a rich school district. We have to rely on more tax dollars than, well, self-generated tax dollars than what the state provides us. I'm just wondering where we're going to go. I just think as a board we need to look at this and address it sooner than later.
Mr. Otto, just to piggyback on you and what you said about the state, currently our state share fluctuates between 19 and 20%, whereas before the Fair School funding it was 24.5%. So, which means that right now with the Fair School funding plan, the local community is having to support 80 to 81% of our education.
Any Any other questions for Shauna? But, you know, Shauna, I'm looking at this list of savings, and I know there's things not on here that were in that audit, but I also know there's things that at least the board hasn't jumped up and down to do, such as cut social workers and cut counselors and cut school psychologists and other things. And we have cut at least 9 positions, you know, teacher positions. But at some point, we as a community have to decide how deep do those go, because some of those cuts, in my opinion, directly affect our students in negative ways. So what I would like, after looking at this and then looking at the financial report, if you could come back next month with basically a resolution, because I know to move forward on a levy, we have to pass a resolution to give you authority to go talk to the auditor, then we have to pass another resolution. And I think we need to get moving on looking at that and what that would mean for the community. So I'm going to ask you to bring something forth next month.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other comments or questions? Thank you for the information, Ms. Trafalski.
Okay, we're going to move on to 5G, and it is recommended that the board approve the advertisement of an RFQ for our food service program for the 22-23 school year.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve 6G?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. Dr. Howard. Are there any questions for Sean?
I just want to clarify, it's 5? 5?
It's 5.
But that's okay.
5G. I was jumping ahead.
You're okay.
All right. So could you call the roll for approval of 5G?
Dr. Knight Abowitz.
Yes.
Dr. Howard.
Yes.
Mr. Bothus.
Yes.
Mr. Otto.
Yes.
Mr. Mead.
Yes.
Motion passes. Bless you. Next item up is 5H, and it is recommended that the board approve a contract with the Butler County ESC to provide additional technology support to finish out the 21-22 school year.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve 5H?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Otto. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Knight Abowitz. Any questions or?
Yeah, what are we using this person for?
So we have an IT person who's gravely ill, and he is not able to work, and he's been out for a while, so I don't want to give too much information, but just know, please have this person in your thoughts and prayers. So our IT department is down a full person and has been down a full person for almost this entire year. We have state assessments coming up. You have to use the computers, the technology. We are going to be collecting all of the machines at the end of the school year and retrofitting them. That's the wrong word. Matt, what's the word? To reface them to make them all right, wipe them down and stuff like that. So there's a lot of work that's coming up that we're not making it as is. We've also had a lot of public records requests, so we need our IT to pull those records requests. So that also takes another person up to do that type of duty. So this position will not fully fill the gap, but it's a start to help out our IT team.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Throw, for that. If you would call the roll, Ms. Trafalski.
Mr. Otto.
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abowitz.
Yes.
Mr. Bothus.
Yes.
Dr. Howard.
Yes.
Mr. Mead.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next up is 5I, and it is recommended that the board approve a 3-year extension for Mr. Smith to farm 17 acres on the southern portion of the high school property.
Can I get a motion to approve 5I?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Knight Abowitz. A second?
Second.
Second. Thank you, Dr. Howard. Any questions?
I don't know if this is, I'm not seeing it in the agreement. I don't know if this is part of the discussion. The tension between habitat restoration that the district is doing and whether or not the farming methods being used will impact that restoration in any way.
It will not.
Okay.
So they work hand in hand. So those, Mr. Smith and our teachers work hand in hand, as well as our maintenance department when they are working in and around that area.
Excellent.
It will be protected.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If you would call the roll, Mr. Felski.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Bothist?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item up is 5J, and it is recommended that the board approve a 3-year service agreement with Public School Works.
Can I get a motion to approve 5J?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Knight Abowitz. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Otto. Any questions? You briefly want to state what service they perform for the district?
This is all of the online required training that all staff members have to take. It is the student behavioral system that the teachers and staff use to record student behavior, and it also includes our bullying hotline.
Okay, thank you.
So this is not an optional thing?
No, if we don't use Public School Works, we will be finding another vendor.
Thank you. Okay, if you would call the roll, Mr. Felski.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Bothist?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item up is 5K, and it is recommended that the board approve an MOU with the Butler County ESC for an additional student to receive services at the Union Day Therapeutic School.
Can I get a motion to approve 5K?
So moved.
So moved. Thank you, Mr. Otto. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bothist. Any questions or discussion? If you would call the roll, Mr. Felski.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Bothist?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item up is 5L, and it is recommended, 5L, and it is recommended that the board approve the federal, state, and local program funds as presented.
Can I get a motion to approve 5L?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
Can you, just explain what these are?
We are receiving additional funds, and I'm just going to start making it a habit that we report what is coming in.
Oh, so this is money coming in?
Money coming in.
Okay.
If you would call the roll, Mr. Felski.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Bothist?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Motion passes. I have a few items just to give you a quick update on. The Auditor of State has completed Talawanda's financial audit for fiscal year 21, and it has been posted not only on their website, but ours as well, if the community members would like to read it. Or if you would like a copy, just email me and I will forward it to you. It is over 75 pages long and would make great reading material if you're having trouble falling asleep.
And
Second item.
This is the routine annual audit.
This is our routine annual audit, and actually, as of today, we have finished, I just got the email, and it's been uploaded for our Medicaid audit for fiscal year 20. So instead of me reporting on it next month, hot off the press, it has been completed and been uploaded to the Medicaid site. So the last item I have to report is that we have hit a delay in the bus and maintenance facility project as we were denied the minor amendment to conditional use that we applied for with the City of Oxford's Planning Commission. The commission felt that it was a major change to the original designation, with the building being about 6,000 square feet and a large footprint with the bus parking lot. Taking their concerns and recommendations, we are applying for a new conditional use with the intent to be on the Planning Commission agenda by May 10th. All I have to report.
Now, that sets us back some with the bus garage project,
This will
right?
set us back a couple more months.
Okay.
But you also said, though, that our negotiations with Miami of using the current facility we're still good, even though our lease has technically expired.
So, no, it does not expire until April 30th, but we are working on extending the lease either by a month-to-month or on a quarterly basis. We are in talks with Miami on that. The saving grace for us is that Butler County Rural Transit has also been delayed in the Chestnut Hub project. So I hope not to be having to move out and figure out option B and C until the fall.
But it looks like we will have to do an option B because the Butler County Route Transportation should be able to start breaking ground sometime in fall.
Yes.
And we will not, even with this 4-month push back, there's no way we can get a bus garage facility built completely, parking lot paved, all that stuff done. So we will have to work on where we're putting our facilities people and where we're putting our bus people and where we're putting the buses. So it is more complicated,
right?
Because the can was kicked down the road, so to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Fauski. Dr. Thoreau, the report of the superintendent.
I am going to group or block 6. I'm asking the board to approve, recommending that they approve 6A1, approval of a building substitute. 6A2, approval of a teacher contract. 6A3, approval of administrative contract for the middle school principal. 6A4, acceptance of a resignations of the middle school intervention specialist. 6B1, approval of limited employment classified contracts. 6B2, approval of limited employment classified staff contracts. 6B3, acceptance of a resignation of an educational assistant for retirement purposes. 6B4, approval to amend an educational assistant's previously approved contract due to getting previous experience, so that moves them on the salary schedule. 6B5, approval of the substitute classified staff employees. 6C1, approval of a rescission of a supplemental contract. 6C2, and an approval of a supplemental contract. I'm asking that the board would approve those, please.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve 6A, 1 through 4, 6B, 1 through 5, and 6C, 1 and 2?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Otto. And the second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Knight Abowitz. Any questions or discussion? All right, if you would call the roll, Mr. Fauski?
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Bothus?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Motion passes.
So with that, before I move in, I'd like Tim Derrickson to please stand. This is board. You approved Tim Derrickson as our new middle school principal, and he is here tonight. And I just wanted the audience to recognize him. Thank you for coming. He was able to spend the day today with us. He attended a leadership meeting. He went to the 3 elementary buildings. He was introduced to the middle school staff, and he got a little bit of time here, not as much time because we ran out of time at the high school. But welcome. He is coming to us with a wealth of administrative experience. Some may recognize the name as his cousin as well, and he has ties to the community. So welcome, and we're glad that you're here.
Welcome, Mr. Derrickson.
He did all of that and we're not even paying him yet?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said he did all of that today and we're not even paying him yet.
I know, I like that, don't you?
Yeah.
He'll definitely earn it once he meets my son. So my apologies in advance, my friend.
At this point in time, I'm asking that the board approve the overnight field trip for the 5th grade ETC students to attend the space camp in Huntsville, Alabama in May.
Can I get a motion to approve 6D?
So moved.
Thank you, David, Mr. Bothus, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Knight Abowitz. Any questions or discussion? I'm excited that these things are happening again
Oh my God,
for the
I'm
kids.
so excited. Washington, D.C., I know we've been
Right.
planning it. That's on for 8th grade. We're doing a
Good.
lot of the stuff is back to normal.
Yes, that's very exciting for the students. Okay, if you would call the roll, Ms. Tofowski.
I would like to just mention quickly, though, too, in this agreement, just so the public knows as well, this is being paid for $395 per student from fundraising grants and parental biweekly payments.
Correct.
Yes. Thank you. Ms. Tofowski?
Mr. Bothus?
Yes.
Dr. Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I made this next letter, or 6E, a standalone. I could have put it in information, but I just wanted it to not be buried. Aaron Clendon, who works for the Butler County elections, has notified us that 4 out of the 5 of our buildings will be used as a polling site on May 3rd. Well, now we got those contracts, filled out those contracts, and now we're hearing that the Ohio Supreme Court may not approve the redistricting, and maybe it won't happen on May 3rd. Anyways, we are going forward, and we're making the announcement. Mrs. Morse sent out a communication. There will be no school for students on May 3rd. We're planning for that election to go forward. Staff will still come to work, and it will be an in-service day that we will be working on. We also wanted to give as much notice as possible to our families so that they can find childcare or any type of care that they needed to do. I said this when we passed our 2-year calendar, that we didn't have May 3rd listed. There was nothing on at that point in time, and then again, about a week ago, we were notified, so. Just notification.
Right.
Don't need to do anything. It's on record, and if you have questions, please let me know.
And it's kind of just sensible. I mean, we have to do it even if the election doesn't go forward. We're kind of locked in.
That's it.
We don't know.
Yeah.
We're kind of locked in, or we wait to the last minute, and then it's unfair to families to find daycare at the last minute, too.
Right.
It just doesn't work out well. All right, informational items. I know last month we talked about federal monies, and I got a couple comments, communications, that were trying to clarify the different pots of money for federal money. So I wanted to just take a minute out to explain it. So there are several different types of federal money that Talawanda School District and other school districts receive. The first one that we've talked about a lot has been called ARP, A-R-P, ESSER, E-S-S-E-R, COVID-19 funds. It's all related to the COVID-19 pandemic. There were 3 sets of funds that were awarded to schools. There were different requirements for each of those funds. One of the requirements was to get community input, which we did. We did a survey, and we had like 331, I think it was 331 results on there. It could have been 334. I'm sorry. It's around in that area. We got input. We talked at the board at that, and we wrote that pandemic plan that is found on our website under the COVID-19 resources, and we've upgraded from when we had masks, didn't have masks, added masks, and other information as we went through the COVID pandemic through it. That money is federal money, and it is totally different money than the yearly federal money that Talawanda also gets for academic professional development, for special education. So each year, this second set of federal money is often called title money. We also have an obligation to advertise and explain what these are, which we do, and we always do it in May, and we do it right before a board meeting. We publicize it, even in the newspapers, and we get very few people, except I know Mr. Annabelle tends to come every year to it and participates, which we're appreciative of it. And those title monies, again, have different strings or different things that they can be spent on. We get a little bit of money for special ed pre-K, $10,000, and it has to be used for that. We get some money for Title I services, which we use at our elementary levels to provide instruction or additional instruction, not teacher that instruction. It doesn't supplant, it's in addition to help catch up students. We have some special ed money. Now, I don't want you to think that this federal title money pays for all of our special ed, all of our professional development, all of our Title I, all of our preschool, because it doesn't. An example, pre-K gets $10,000. That doesn't even cost the cover of an aid. Our special ed does not get enough money to cover. Our professional development doesn't. But we will gladly take and follow all of the rules associated with the federal money. So I wanted to explain the differences because people were mixing the two up. So if you're in violation of, let's say, the ESSER, ARP, COVID-19 money, yes, they could come back and ask us to possibly repay any or all of that. Our title federal money's the exact same thing. If we're in violation of it, they could stop giving us any more money, and they could ask us also to recoup those expenses, or they could have different sanctions with it. There's a little bit tighter sanctions with the title money that they can do against us. So I wanted to take that time out to clarify, because I know some people are understanding that we could use federal money for instance to supplant a kindergarten teacher, for instance. I'm just pick a grade level teacher. We cannot with title money. We cannot do any of that. For our ESSER money, we couldn't do that either. We could hire additional staff to help mitigate learning loss. We could do ventilations, and it depended which one it was, if it was the first, second, or third one. So again, I wanted to explain that.
I think the other thing that people need to recognize as well is that the federal money that is title money and some of those other examples is, even though the amounts may change, it is year to year. The ESSER money, this has all been pretty much limited one time or just a couple of disbursement kind of things. We cannot count on ESSER money. It's not going to be coming every year.
Thank you. In fact, we've heard nothing else anymore. ESSER, ARP, COVID-19 money coming our way, absolutely. And you're right, the title federal monies, the second pot, they change every year, depending on the number of students and depending on the federal government. It flows down from the federal government to the state, and then the state determines how some of that is spread out. And they sometimes keep some of the money for other projects or issues.
So the amounts change for that federal
it
money,
does.
but it still is every year. And
Yeah.
it's very specific in what you can use it for.
Correct.
So we
Correct.
have no discretion or very little discretion in how that is applied.
Correct. There's also, oh gosh, I'm going to throw this in. Maintenance of effort.
Right.
That we also have to maintain in the, not in the ESSER, ARP, COVID-19 money, but in these title money. So if we've done it, we have to continue that effort or show that effort unless there was some mitigating expense. For instance, we paid for a student, I'm making this up, that has high needs medical services, may need a one-on-one, is an expensive, and that student graduates, for instance, it is no longer, that would be like a mitigating maintenance of efforts that we could try to explain away. So again, supplanting, it cannot supplant, which means taking over a position that we're required as a board to pay. All right, we're moving forward. So the next thing that I want to talk to you about is 2 bus reminders. First of all, anybody want to become a bus driver? They're advertising, they're looking for bus drivers. We need bus drivers. They are looking for next school year. They're going to be advertising. I said that I would advertise here too. If you're interested, you can contact me. You can contact the transportation themselves. You have to be able to pass a background check. They will provide all of the training. You also have to pass a drug test, but they will do all of the training with you and the assessments to get you if you're interested. And they pay pretty decent. But as I've said, I think that is one of our jobs that is very difficult because you're driving a big machine with 40, 50, how many kids in the back, and you're driving rural, you're driving in the city, so it's all over the place, and I have a lot of respect for our bus drivers for the job that they do. Lastly, I want to remind everybody that for the bus, please be out 5 minutes to 10 minutes before your bus time. We've had some incidences where some parents have come late and the bus has already closed the doors and started to pull up, and we've had some buses be blocked, or some people tried to get into the buses, which is problematic. It is unsafe, not only for the people, the parents that are doing this and their kids, but also for the bus driver and especially our kids on the bus. And I cannot emphasize enough, if you are late and you see that bus, doors closing and moving on, do not stop it. Do not try to stop it. Get out there early. Please take your kid to the school, even if it's late, or keep them home for the day. We need to keep our buses safe. And we've had a couple issues within the last 2 weeks of this, and it wasn't just one issue, so I'm going to make that statement. Lastly, I want to address some of the public comments. I wish some of the people had stayed. I know there was a comment about mock trial. We did not mention it because we have the mock trial presentation coming at our next board meeting. Dr. Weatherwax is able to attend with some of the students, and they will be recognized. It wasn't that we forgot it. We're very proud that they're #1 in the state, and we will recognize them as a board when they come to do their presentation here. Dress, groom, I understand the concerns about the hair interfering with learning, but the purpose of that is not for the purpose for cultural, but the purpose is there are certain classes and activities that we do that your hair has to be in a certain situation, or covered or not covered, to protect it. For instance, when you're doing food service, for instance, your hair has got to be netted and stuff like that. When you're working in labs and laboratory, you can't have long hair over a Bunsen burner, because that's a safety issue, right? So that's what, and I know it doesn't specifically say that in the language, but we attended both Mr. Malone's and myself with the Neola representative, and that's what that was about. Industrial arts, if you have any type of activities like that, there are requirements. And there are some requirements in sports and extracurriculars too when you're participating, that loose hair could be a danger to that person or to other people. So I just wanted to clarify that. And I know we had many people come tonight to show their support for a student. I can tell you that we have addressed the Title IX requirements a couple times with the board, and it's on tape of what we can and cannot do, and we have to work through the process. I can tell you we have heard the parents and we have heard the other side as well. We do have a decision maker. The decision maker is an attorney, not our own attorney. It is somebody that we do pay, but they work on their own and they are trained in Title IX. When this decision maker makes her decision, we will all be notified at the exact same time. This is any Title IX process. I am telling you that this Title IX issue or the new procedures stemmed out of changes that happened at the college level, and then it was moved down, in my opinion, with very little forethought as to how it would apply to K-12. And there's some issues with it, and that's why it takes a little bit longer to get through the process of Title IX. The second thing I am also hearing is the federal government is realizing, oops, this is having some problems at the K-12 level, and they're considering making some changes or going back to what it was at some point in time. I also can tell you that several of our administrators have been trained in the initial Title IX, and we're now going through another training of Title IX, which is in addition to go more in depth. So we are meeting those requirements, and we have a Title IX page that you can find on our website if you want more information, or you can email myself, or you can email Mr. Malone or Ms. Jones for any type of questions with you. But we take all allegations seriously, and we will investigate it to it fully, and we will let the investigation lead, and we don't comment on investigations at this point in time.
Thank you, Dr. Thoreau. At this time, are there any items from any board members?
Yes, I wanted to congratulate the mock trial team on winning the state championship. It's a phenomenal honor. I'm proud to say I was on Dr. Weatherwax's dissertation committee at Miami University, and that's my claim to fame. Thanks to all of the families and coaches, and particularly the students who supported this effort. We're very proud of all of our Miami teams, academic and non-academic oriented. Thank you.
Anyone else?
As a reminder to the public, our contact information is available on the website. So in the event that there is something you'd like for us to share, especially not speaking for Dr. Howard, but for athletics, arts, student achievement, things that happen internally that we may not be aware of, feel free to reach out to us. We will welcome success stories with open arms, I'm sure.
Thank you. Future board events. Our next board meeting will be April 21st in this room. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Otto. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Knight Abowitz. Chana, or Mr.
Mr.
Fausti,
Otto?
if you would call the roll.
Otto?
Yes.
Knight Abowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Bothus?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.